in this case too is that I don't really think that the trial really answered was, why did you have the knife in the first place? Why did you have it there? Why did you bring it to school? Like, what was going on where you felt like you needed that? So that's a big question that I'd still like to know the answer to.
Yeah, no holding back now. Got the chamber checked, the mic is hot. Dropping truth bombs, give it all I got. Locked, cocked, and unfiltered. Yeah, we unfiltered. Locked, cocked, and unfiltered. Let's go!
What's up, everybody? It's Locked, Cocked, and Unfiltered. And we have a very, very special guest today, along with my co-host Clayton. Unfortunately, Tony had other engagements and couldn't make it tonight, so he's going to be here in spirit. But we have a great person, a great friend with Jerah Turner here today. Firearms instructor, Second Amendment advocate. I think I had a few things I jotted down here. 16 years with Clearing the Chamber, teaching gun ownership and training women and shooters to become capable defenders. You also are founder of WADE, Women's Awareness and Defense Endeavor. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, nonprofit dedicating to empowering women through self-defense and firearms training. And she is there in Texas. Our topic for today is, of course, the Karmelo Anthony verdict. I think it would be a really good conversation. And her being there in Texas understands the laws more in Texas than what both Clayton and I do, with me being in South Carolina, him being in Minnesota. So, Jerah, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Yes, we are actually at 19 years with Clearing the Chamber now. It's been a long time.
Wow.
It is. Yeah, Wade's doing. I know. Look at. You don't have to tell me. It's fine. But we are. I was wondering why you didn't laugh sooner. There must be a little bit of a delay. But
there is a little bit.
Tony is here with us in spirit on my little patch board. You can see.
There we go.
There he is.
With us always.
Yeah.
He's with me every day that I come in here into my office. So that's good. But yes, we down here in Texas, we have been following the Karmelo Anthony case very stringently, very closely. It's gotten a lot of nationwide media coverage. There's been very mixed reactions in different communities. And one of the things, or a few of the things that I want to clear up with you guys this evening is what Texas law says in regard to this. I think that the three of us, being firearms instructors, understand that gun rights typically tend to be states' rights. There are federal firearms laws, but a lot of the laws pertaining to gun ownership, gun brandishing, carrying are typically done within the state and in the state legislatures. That means that those laws can differ between states, right? So a lot of the main differences tend to revolve around types of guns that are allowed and not allowed. Some states have magazine capacity limitations. Some states limit where you can and can't carry the weapon, etc. So for this particular case, this was very controversial in so far as a lot of people attributed this to race. A black man, a young black man stabbed a young white man. And I think that it's very important, and I think sometimes it's really difficult to do when, if you're close to the person who's accused, or, if you're in a community where you feel like you're consistently treated unfairly. It's very easy to be convinced that what you should be able to do, what you think you should be able to do, it should be lawful or is lawful. And so that's why I really, really try to make my way around Texas a lot to teach that law to students, to young people. I teach civics, firearms safety, Texas firearms and weapons law to a lot of homeschool co-ops in Texas. It's not something that I'm really allowed to take into the public school sector, which I think is a travesty. I think we need to teach young people this. I think they need to know it, understand it, and have awareness of it, especially if you're coming out of high school, you're about to turn 18, you're going to go to college, or you're going to live on your own. You can get married at that age. You really need to understand what it means to be able to defend yourself, and defend your home. So, are there any particular areas that you're the most interested in, or do you have any questions that are specific questions that I can answer?
From my understanding, it started around him being asked to leave, and then my understanding is Austin pushed him, and then he stabbed Austin. Is that correct?
That is correct. So let's start there. So there are people on the internet and on social media that are incorrectly stating that because he was asked to leave, because Karmelo Anthony was asked to leave from under the tent, that he had to go according to criminal trespass law. That's not true. The ground underneath the feet of those young people was not owned by anyone but the school or the town, right? So you can ask someone to leave where you are, if they're making you uncomfortable or whatever, but they're not necessarily obligated to leave. It depends on who owns that dirt or who owns that structure, right? So as a courtesy,
Right.
As a courtesy, Karmelo probably should have left underneath the tent. But then there's an argument. So the unwritten rule in Texas track meet, culture is each team's tent is like their locker room or their football bench, right? So that's their area, and the other team's not really supposed to come in under their area. Well, the argument is that it was raining and Karmelo was invited under the tent by someone else other than Austin Metcalf, right? So he felt like he was invited. He felt like he should be there, right? And so he was like defending. There was pride and ego involved, right? And one of the things that we always say is your ego is not your enemy. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a very chaotic set of circumstances to try to navigate through to go who's right and who's wrong. Now, Austin was also left in charge of the tent, right? So a lot of student valuables are left underneath that tent, backpacks, electronics, gear, right? So the coach had said to Austin, you're in charge of the tent. Well, here's my first rub, and I'm not blaming the coach. I'm just making a point because I don't know what was said and not said, but I know that really this wasn't talked about from what I could tell by reading articles and independent journalism through the trial. There's a local independent journalist named Sarah Fields that covered this case every day in the courtroom, I believe, except one. And she didn't make it into the courtroom. They only allowed 24 people to go into the courtroom that weren't affiliated with the counsel, prosecution, or jury. And she was not allowed in one day because Karmelo Anthony supporters lined up too early in the morning. Judge Roach had said that they can only line up beginning at 6 a.m. And Karmelo Anthony supporters began lining up at 5 a.m. So that they could be the only ones that were in the courtroom and no independent journalists or anyone else that was on this side of Austin Metcalf's family could be in the courtroom. So that was kind of terrible behavior. But getting back to the tent, right? So the coach says, Austin, you are in charge of the tent. Well, to me, that's a little ambiguous, right? I mean, we're basically delegating our authority to a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah.
How do you think that they're going to deal with that, So I think that one of the takeaways for teachers and coaches, or really any adult that is, in charge of teaching children or influencing children or young adults, is when we delegate authority to young people, we owe them clarity, not just a task, and then tell them to figure it out, Sometimes that's okay, but in this case, I think the coach should have given instructions on that. Hey, you're in charge of the tent. I want to make sure I've got eyeballs on people's valuables. Let's make sure that we're taking care of that. But if someone from another school comes under our tent, please politely ask them to leave. If they refuse, come get a coach or go get a teacher.
Right.
This is where your role ends. Your role is basically to alert us if something isn't right under the tent, not necessarily to take care of it yourself. So I think that the opposition, right, Karmelo Anthony supporters that said, Austin Metcalf shouldn't have shoved him in the first place, aren't really wrong. And I think that we have to admit that. But then we also know that as self-defense and use of force and firearms instructors and weapons instructors, we also understand that a shove doesn't constitute the deployment of deadly force. Now, it also depends on the situation, too, correct? I mean, if someone's trying to push you off a cliff, well, yeah, shoot them. I mean, that's deadly force in and of
Right.
itself.
Exactly.
Someone's trying to
Yeah.
push you off a cliff. But if someone's just pushing you to the ground, in an altercation and they're not armed themselves, then the deployment of deadly force just simply isn't a viable defense.
No, and it's really the same way here in South Carolina as well too. A push is really seen as simple assault. You can't use deadly force to stop simple assault. But God, now, man, I can't believe I'm really about to say this. And to me, I mean, looking at them, they look to be about the same size, but you could almost argue that someone like Clayton's size pushing someone like essentially smaller than them could be construed as deadly force in itself, because if you get pushed too hard, head hits the ground, concussions, brain bleeds, things like that. So, but I don't think, to me, I don't think that's the case here, because they were about the same size. But if there's a size difference there, sometimes I think that someone could take that as, needing to use deadly force in self-defense.
Very circumstantial. This circumstance did not
Exactly.
require
Right.
the deployment of deadly force. Now, the second argument, that I'm hearing from the Karmelo Anthony support side is, well, Karmelo was standing his ground. He was invited to be under that tent. It was rain. Why would you deny someone shelter from the rain? So in Texas, there's 3 factors that have to be satisfied in order for you to be able to claim a stand your ground defense. And the first one is that you have to have a lawful right to be where you are. So that could be argued a couple of different ways. There was a lot of rumors that Karmelo wasn't even supposed to be at that track meet that day. The second factor is that you cannot be committing a crime, which Karmelo Anthony was committing a crime because he brought an illegal weapon on school grounds. So you can't have a knife on Texas school grounds, not at any Texas school-sponsored events, school transportation, or within the building of the actual school. So factor number 2 was also not satisfied. And number 3 is that you have to have a lawful right to be where you are. You can't be committing a crime. And you can't provoke the person against whom the force was used. Okay? So I think that both parties were a party to the provocation. So none of the factors that stand your ground were satisfied under Texas law. So that's also not a defense to prosecution in this particular case.
Wow. I did not know that about the stand your ground. Yeah, because I mean, like here, there's nothing really specific laid out like that as far as when it comes to stand your ground. But I want to back up to you can't be committing a crime. So the knife thing. So just for some clarity, you can't have a knife at all on any school property in Texas, correct?
You can't have a known weapon, no. Now, there are things that you can have at school that could be improvised weapons, like scissors. You know, you can stab somebody in the eye with a
No, no,
pencil.
no.
You know, but like you
Right. No,
cannot
no,
you
no, no.
cannot take you cannot take a known weapon like a knife or a gun or anything like that into Texas elementary, junior high, or high school, or on any playing field, any school sponsored event, any school transportation like buses or vans. That is not allowed.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, because it's a little, because yeah, that's why I wanted to just get some clarity, because like for South Carolina, I can carry a knife onto the school, into the school, or onto the school property somewhere, or like a football game or something like that. The only catch is it can't be over a 2-inch knife blade.
Yeah, no,
So
not allowed in school.
that's where yeah, that's
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, it just goes to show you how every state is a little different, is with their nuances and stuff when it comes to
Yep.
this. But no, yeah, I'm actually, you've got me curious now. I'm gonna have to dig a little deeper, because I have never seen anything like this. It kind of laid out in these three when it comes to the stand your ground. But I mean, yeah, I mean, looking at this and exactly what you're saying, it's nothing has been met there. So that is kind of wild right there.
And we
Well,
don't have stand your ground up here.
yeah, stand your ground is very interesting because, you know, a lot of states are either stand your ground or duty to retreat. I don't agree with duty to
Yep.
retreat because I think that it's intrinsic in a human being to want to flee from a threat if you can. I think it's just already wired into our human nature.
So
Right.
Yeah.
the
So,
catch up here is we have a duty. Go ahead, Jerah.
no, it's okay. Finish that.
Okay, so we don't technically have stand your ground per se, but like we have a duty to retreat outside of our home. But the only way we can stand our ground inside our home is if we are preventing a felony within our home. So felony assault, felony rape, felony murder. So that's how ours is written up here.
Yeah, stand your ground basically exists, you know, in Texas. Yeah, I mean, for a couple of different reasons, but you know, one is, look, you know, it's intrinsic in a human to want to run away from a threat. I mean, if there's an exit available, it's in our human nature to want to take it. But if there's something else, if there's a variable, right? Like you might be able to run, you know, me as a 44-year-old female, you guys as, you know, grown men, like you could run, but your 3-year-old can't. Your elderly,
Chris,
you know,
she
mother-in-law that lives
called us
with you
grown men.
can't, you know. Is that not right?
That's right. That's right.
But
Sounding immature again, people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jerah, but you know,
no,
I get what
that's
you're saying
okay.
to your point.
The idea is, you know, that you're not obligated to flee, you know, if there's something to defend, but it has to be reasonable, right? You have to inject reasonableness, you know, into that. It's not just about, you know, there's the free and clear exit. I just want to fight. That's not really what it means. Or I'm standing my ground in my property and I'm going to shoot you over my Amazon packages. That's not, you know, what that's meant
Nope.
for. Right.
And
But that wasn't
no, go ahead,
that
finish.
wasn't
I'm sorry, let's finish.
That's okay. That just wasn't a clear defense within this particular case because he wasn't supposed to have that weapon on school grounds anyway. And that's the big question in this case too, is that I don't really think that the trial really answered was, why did you have the knife in the first place? Why did you have it there? Why did you bring it to school? Like, what was going on where you felt like you needed that? So that's a big question that I'd still like to know the answer to.
No, and it's good you bring that up, because I was kind of thinking about that myself. You really never saw that brought up during the trial at all whatsoever, and it baffled me on why that was never brought up, on why they had the knife. I know there's been a lot of talk and rumors that, you know, he had issues with some kids are getting picked on or something, trying to protect himself. I don't remember exactly everything, but it seemed like that was like friends and family that were putting that stuff out there. But yeah, nothing was ever brought up to try to determine what made him bring that knife. I hadn't really thought about it too much until you said that, but was there, it almost makes you think, like, was there something put in place where the knife couldn't be brought up? Because I know they have weird things that go on in the courtroom.
None of that was none of that information was put in any articles that I read. None of that information was given in Sarah Field's reporting. That's a burning question that I have, because if he was being bullied, well, now I have some opinions on that, because I don't think that the public school system addresses bullying the way that they should. I got arrested
They don't.
in high school twice for beating up bullies in syllables. That's how much I hate a bully. I don't like, so you can't physically, you couldn't have a physical altercation in my high school without getting arrested. And I didn't care, because if I saw somebody bullying another person, maybe somebody that had a learning disability or somebody that wasn't popular, I would just hit you in the mouth. And that was just the way that I operated. And I never got in trouble for it, because that was the way that my family was. That was the way that my family was.
You're not wrong. I mean,
They
that's
just,
what, to me, that's what they deserve.
another week at school with us having to pick Jerah up from jail, no problem, And so I think that
we call that a Tuesday.
We've got to handle up on this bullying situation, because if Karmelo was being bullied at school and felt like that was, and nobody was helping him, and he felt like that was the only way that he was going to be able to deal with that, well, we have a whole different consideration to think about. But none of that was brought up in the trial. I didn't hear of any of that brought up in the trial. So now, from the Karmelo Anthony supporters in the Black community, I got a lot of grief from them on that video, including some of my own Black friends. And one of them was, it was completely ridiculous, because he should have known the law. He was talking to me like this behavior should have been normal. And I was like, you literally teach guns for a living, and that's a hard thing for me to swallow, that you don't understand this part of the law in Texas. And he lives here. So that's a problem. And he and I are trying to work that out civilly, because it's going to be a problem for him, and he's going to be held liable on many counts if he's teaching people in the Black community that this is the behavior that they should be exuding with their weapons and their guns and themselves. But we also have to look at and acknowledge that there is sometimes a disparagement between how courts or people will look at a white aggressor versus a Black aggressor. And I'm totally fine to acknowledge that. I think that sometimes it's the truth, not always. But I think that this particular case was so cut and dry, and sometimes the act is so indefensible that you can't defend it in court adequately. A lot of people were blaming Karmelo Anthony's attorney, who's actually a very well-respected attorney. He was not a public defender. That was the rumor, is that his attorney was a public defender and didn't really know what he was doing. And that's not true. He was not a public defender. He has been practicing law for quite some time. He did start in the public defender's office, but he had good, adequate representation. He just did an indefensible act. So we really do kind of have to acknowledge that. And I think that there's a big difference between, acknowledging and putting out there that, many times, there's racial undertones in these situations. That's over here, right? But then, saying that this is the way that we should handle problems, that's a totally different area and completely indefensible. And we just can't operate that way, as a country and as a society if we want to heal anything. There was a time when Black people were treated horribly and for no good reason. And I think that we do need to acknowledge that and understand that. And, as a people, recognize that. But, on the other hand, white people are kind of tired, of, well, at least white people my age are really tired of being blamed for things that we never did. And so I think that we can't meet in the middle. Where are we going to go?
I'm 100% with you on that. And to me, following what I've followed with this, and I mean, we all kind of knew where it was going to go. It's when do we stop going to that, kind of like what you were saying? And yes, I'm behind you with. There's always going to be some bias there, even though everybody in that system is supposed to be unbiased. There's always going to be bias there, and I hate to say it, as human beings, to me, I feel it's natural where people automatically judge a book by its cover as well too. I know I get it all the time. I know what I look like. I've bald head, big beard, tattooed. I know what people think of me when I walk into a room.
Yeah, Santa
It's
Claus.
just yeah, right. I wish that was the case. Now the kids, yeah, that's what kids see. It's funny when they do that, but it's that this was really, I mean, ultimately made into a race thing, and it's not a race thing. It's, to me, it's a moral thing.
Well, to a
It's
hammer, everything looks like a nail. And
right.
now
Yeah.
here's what I will say, and I will give you a separate example of why that community continues to cry foul. Okay, because in 2022 in Texas, we had a similar incident at a high school in Bell County, and the aggressor was white and stabbed I believe, a Hispanic student, and they were around the same age. The white student was convicted not of murder, I believe of negligent homicide, maybe, and received a 10-year sentence. Well, Karmelo Anthony was convicted of murder and received a 35-year sentence. The circumstances were extremely similar. So my question is, and this is part of the law that I'm really not an expert in when it comes to Texas self-defense and Texas firearms law. I know that like the back of my hand, but I don't understand the sentencing part, the sentencing process. How are we deciding who gets how long and for what charge? Right? Because in the Karmelo Anthony trial, the jury was also directed that they could consider a manslaughter charge. So that's a big question, and that's something that I would like to research. I think that I may do some independent journalism myself in the area, and I may talk to some attorneys. I may talk to some judges that have tried similar cases and go, what does that process look like, and how do we decide how many years people get? Because I think during Karmelo Anthony's sentencing, he got 35 years, but I think he's eligible for a parole in 17 years. So I understand that from the side of the Black community. Why is that happening? And unfortunately, I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. So my conclusion on the case is the act itself was indefensible. It deserved punishment. I also understand the questions surrounding the sentencing of the length of time that Karmelo Anthony got, and I think that that's something to be considered.
So sorry, I get down rabbit holes sometimes when people bring stuff up, and you kind of had me wondering too. And you might get some different answers from the lawyers and judges, but from what I'm seeing here, it involves, I guess, the level of intent and I guess the classification, like felony, misdemeanor, all that stuff. But
Yeah,
from what it's
so
saying is, yeah.
Tyler
Go
wasn't
ahead.
charged with murder, so that may be part of it too. But then that's going to yield
And
another question: is why wasn't he charged with murder? If you go and read about that case that happened in 2022 here in Texas, you will find glaring similarities. I mean, it's pretty wild. So I think that the questions need to be asked and answered. I'm not mad at the verdict at all. Frankly, I would have taken, no, it's not for me to take. This wasn't my son that was killed. I want to put that out there right now. But, as an outsider looking in, I don't know that I don't know that I would have been mad at a manslaughter charge, just given the age, of the boys. But I don't know if that's right either. And if people want to give me grief for that, I'll take it. I get it. I've gotten a lot of grief over the last few days since I posted that video, but I make no apologies for it, because I teach this on a daily basis, and I see parents failing their kids all the time, not preparing them for the real world, not preparing them for conflict resolution, releasing them into the world with no idea about emotional intelligence. This lies solely and squarely on parents and adults in this boy's life, that we're teaching him that this is the way that problems are solved. That's a big issue too. And that there's some, I don't know if you saw the video that Kevin Dixie posted about, well, hey, if you think that Karmelo Anthony should be convicted of murder, then you also think that Chud the Builder should do some prison time. And I do think that.
No, I agree with you on that one as well. Yeah, I mean, that dude is just he's something else, man. That's
Right.
that could be a totally separate episode in itself right
Oh,
there.
for sure.
Oh, we might should
Well,
do
let's
that.
touch on it. Let's
Would you
touch
come
on it
back?
real quick.
Would you come back, Jerah, if we got Kevin on to all talk about that?
Yeah, I totally would, but I will tell you, we don't have to dive deep into it, but I do want to touch on something regarding that case.
Yeah, go for it.
I can't speak to Tennessee law. That's where it happened. I live in Texas, but I will tell you that if we transplanted that situation with Fred the Builder and Mr. Fox outside of the courthouse there in Tennessee, I can tell you that I could probably bet money that he would be convicted, because the underlying theme, a very important word in Texas self-defense law, is provocation. So, and we talked about it with stand your ground, right? You can't provoke the person against whom the force was used. And that is exactly what Chud the Builder did. Is he just walks around and provokes people all day. And when you provoke people like that, in Texas, you limit or sometimes even forfeit your claim to self-defense. I mean, you can't benefit from a situation that you wrongly created. That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
So I think that he should do some prison time. I think that Texas as a whole is going to be, or I'm sorry, Tennessee as a whole is going to be the better with him behind bars for a while, and maybe he can learn some lessons. He's not going to be well received at all.
No.
He has quite the reputation, but if that happened in Texas, that's a pretty slam dunk case in and of itself as well.
All right, so I'm sorry, I did a little bit more digging on this. It just got me wondering too. I mean, I can't help myself. This is my problem. All right, the difference between negligent homicide and murder in Texas lies primarily in the defendant's mental state and the resulting level of culpability. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and be a dumb redneck. I don't know what the hell culpability is. But murder requires the highest level of intent, where the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused death or knew their conduct was reasonably certain to cause death. Negligent homicide involves the lowest level of culpability, where the defendant failed to perceive a substantial risk of death that a reasonable person would have recognized.
So culpability,
I don't know if that answered any.
Basically means that you deserve blame, or you are solely responsible for a wrongdoing. That's culpability. So if you're not culpable, that means that there are mitigating or extenuating circumstances that cause a situation, and you just happen to be involved by maybe making it worse.
Yeah, I would be curious to see what you find out in that, because it does seem like to me what I'm kind of feeling like is the mental state, and then those charges in itself on how they're looked at is why the sentencing went like it did. Now according to this, negligent.
Yeah, so
Negligent
Carmelo
homicide
was culpable.
only
Yeah,
shows
he was
2
culpable
years.
because he brought the weapon. He was culpable because there was nothing impeding him from leaving the area. Nobody was holding him there against his will. So he's culpable because he didn't walk away. He had a weapon. He could have just thrown hands back, and then it would have just been. Then they would have just been like suspended or something,
Yeah.
and everybody would
Yep.
still be alive, and it'd be something that they laugh about at the 10-year reunion. But now we have
Well, I think a lot of people are scared to get embarrassed by getting in a fight and getting their ass kicked. So to me, their thing is to automatically go to some type of weapon. And
Yeah.
I I don't know. It's to me when he went to that knife, and I think it was there to essentially start out as just scaring them off, but then turned into much worse, which goes back to like you were saying, he should have ultimately yes just walked away, but so many people want to. And I mean, really back to ego as well too. And I
Yeah,
mean,
and
to me, with
like
weapons
you
like
said,
knives and guns are your ultimate equalizer.
yeah, like you said earlier, they were of equal age and kind of equal stature, right?
Yeah.
This wasn't a 25-year-old man trying to beat up a 55-year-old woman, right? Like that's going to
Right.
be the
Right.
deadly force is going to be much more acceptable in a situation like that. So I think that we have a lot of people that are not wanting to accept responsibility, and that's the problem. And we've seen that decline a lot over the last 20 or 30 years of people not wanting to take responsibility for their actions. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping this sets an example. I'm hoping the courts will stop continuing to let repeat offenders out on the streets to hurt people. That just puts us at liability. And
Yep.
I hope that people in Carmelo Anthony's community will see the light, because a lot of the culture that they're teaching their boys, I get it. Like I totally understand that racism still exists. I get it, and we have to work together, white parents and black parents, and you know what, Indian parents too, you know, uh, Middle Eastern parents, Asian parents. Like this idea that it's always been wild to me that racism was ever even a thing. Like it's always been wild to me that people ever even had slaves, or that people were ever enslaved because they were black. It's wild to me that people were ever looked down upon just because they had a really great tan. Like I can never wrap my head around that. It never has made any sense to me, and that's why it's never been a thing that I've ever looked at. So I think that there's like this just historic hate that we're hanging on to, and it's just not something that I can ever explain or comprehend.
And it's just like you said, it's hate that's is getting hung on to, and it to me is that hate gets passed down in these generations. And I don't, and that's from any side, any color, any race. I don't care who you are. It's not just white people that are like this or anything, but it is hate that has been carried on for so long that it's just been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And
Well,
I don't,
and I'm so thankful for Kevin and Tony. They are like, I would bet nobody gets more hate from their own community than they do. You know what I mean? And I hate that
oh
for
yeah,
them.
Oh,
They're doing such a wonderful service for their own communities by being amazing men who can speak to this eloquently. Be truthful when it is a racial situation. Like if they say something was racially motivated, I probably believe them. Because they
right.
carry
right.
credibility. And then they're willing to call it out. If it's not. And so I think that that's
Yeah.
really important. But I hate it. I feel like, I wonder if they feel like they have no home, because they're anomalies. in their own community. And I just really, 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 really hate that for them. So I always want to try to support them. I would love to do a show with Kevin. I would love to talk about the Chud the Builder case as it develops, because I think that he was the provocateur, as it were. And I think that he needs to go to jail. I think he needs to go to jail for a long time. That guy that he shot was a veteran. He was a father. He's just walking around, calling people terrible names, and expecting no consequence, expecting no recourse. And all he's doing is feeding a terrible narrative that all Black people are terrible. And that's not true. Every single race, every single community has their trash. And we are responsible as a society to deal with our trash and take out our trash.
Nope, I 100% agree with that. I mean, this, and I mean, that's what I hate to say it, where kind of to me, that's part of the issue with social media is everybody has a platform now to be able to go viral. And it's what I hate, because back in the day, you could watch like prank videos, and I mean, they were actually funny prank videos. Now, to me, it's not pranking. It's just you're there pushing the button of that lion, hoping it's not going to bite, and then you end up getting bit.
Yep.
And and it's your own fault. And they're obsessed with social media. They're obsessed with going viral. I get told all the time that I don't ever make enough content. I don't ever market myself enough, and it's because I just, I guess I can do better. But I'm busy as it is. I'm a busy instructor. I'd rather be face to face, teaching people, helping people. Instead of having a camera in my face all day and documenting my time all the time. I just don't need it that bad. I just don't need it that bad, and it's not worth it for me to to waste my time doing that all day, every day, to try to get on the next stage, to speak. I don't care about any of that. I just want to teach people how to shoot guns and do it efficiently and have a good mindset behind it. That's my mission. That's my goal. I want to emancipate women out of domestic violence situations. I don't have to be on the stage at GunCon or at Goals or at SHOT Show. I just don't care about it that much. It would be, I'm not saying I would say no if I was invited, but I am saying that, if that's how they're choosing people is by their follower count, I just don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. Yeah,
and to touch on what you just said too, a lot of that, you are busy all the time. That's why we respect you. Ron, appreciate you coming on here because your schedule, but you do a phenomenal amount of work yourself too, and I want to give you that credit too where it belongs, because you do a lot of great things and a lot of great work. So I appreciate you and the friendship and all the work you do too. So
yes, and I know that I owe you a visit, and we're really gonna work on that. That it's just become
it's okay.
More difficult for me to fly with all the equipment that I take to teach.
Hey, I get it.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go the RV route. And so I think that might be a better thing, because I'm in 10 states now. So I got to figure something out. And we got to.
Well, we'd love to get you up here. And plus, your little buddy Cameron, he's only getting bigger.
I miss that boy. He's so good. He's so great. And Jennifer looks fantastic, by the way. You better watch it.
Yeah, she does. I know, right?
Looking better.
Cameron,
she's got me to worry about. That's why she's having to do
it. No, definitely. Jerah, I'd love to get you up here, obviously, and we will definitely make that happen. Obviously, the Cameron conversation, you and I can have that conversation off of this. Love to inform you what's all going on with that. There's a lot going on, as Chris knows, but we can talk more about that later. But to touch back on if you want to move on, I would love to talk about your organization, Wade. I think that's something very important you do. Tell us about that.
I formed Wade in 2017. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, like mom groups on Facebook, and sometimes those moderators will want me to post some things about safety or situational awareness or things like that in the groups, and or moms will have questions because I don't have any biological children, so I feel the need to explain that, like, why am I in mom's groups if I don't have any kids, and this is why. And so I was in one of the moms groups here in the DFW area of Texas, and one of the moms had found out that her husband was sexually assaulting their daughter. And that's just crazy. Like, that's just insanity. And so she found out about it, did everything right, called the police, had him removed from the home. And the police officer explained to her, which I think that he did her a great service by telling her this, he was like, he's going to be able to bond out because you still have to build a case against him. So you need to go somewhere safe because there's nothing that we can do to just keep him in jail indefinitely. And so she went out and bought a gun and posted all these details in this mom's group and was like, and I don't know how to use this gun. And I know that he's going to get out and be really mad. And there's just really not any telling what he's going to be able to do or what he's going to do. And so I need somebody to teach me how to shoot this gun. And so like 20 moms had tagged me in this post. And this was on a Sunday. I had her in the range the next day. He didn't get out of jail until 48 hours later. He was able to bond out.
Oh, wow.
And so she did great. The lesson was good. She was a great shot. We went through some scenarios. I taught her how to draw from holster. We did some move and shoot stuff. And I didn't charge her a penny. And I thought to myself, how many more people are dealing with these kind of situations? Because the justice system does fail women a lot. I don't think that's the intention of a judge. I don't think that's the intention of the police department. But I think that there are a few factors that correlate to why it's so difficult to put people in jail for domestic violence. And I think that part one is that there's usually not really any hard evidence, right? Video of it happening, witnesses, things like that. Two is that there's little to no documentation of incidents, right? So these women don't keep a journal of he hit me on this day or he pushed me on this day, right? And that's difficult. Then it becomes a he said, she said. And the third thing is that sometimes people lie. Sometimes women lie about being abused by their husbands or boyfriends, and that's a big problem because the accusation in and of itself carries a lot of societal weight, and
Yes.
that's unfair to them. And I think you should have to serve jail time if it can be proven that you lied about it. A big case, like a big kind of worldwide or national case that you can go back to is, the Trevor Bauer situation, right? He was a professional Major League Baseball player and, went to, partied and took a girl home, and then she accused him of rape. And then he lost his MLB contracts. He had to go and play overseas in Japan, lost out on hundreds of millions of dollars. And then it turns out that she lied, and she admitted that she lied. And she should be sitting in a jail cell right now because she lied. So those are all things that happen in domestic violence situations and why it's so hard to get a conviction or sometimes even an arrest. What I do is a little bit different. I encourage women to take themselves out of the situation. Just get out. And sometimes that's very hard to do because these women don't have any access to resources. They don't have their own money. Sometimes they're not even allowed to work. And so I provide them those resources, and I provide a resource that police departments typically no longer provide, and that is coming to the home and physically extracting the woman. And I will do that. I will come and get you out. I will help you pack some things, and we're going to walk right out. And we've got 309 women that we've taken out of domestic violence situations since 2017. Only two of them, only two have gone back to their abuser. So our program works. It's but nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to acknowledge that it works, because our program is accountability. These women have to check in with me. They are accountable for going through the program. They're accountable for the counsel to get the counseling. They're accountable to, they got to get jobs. Like, they have to learn what it means to live an independent life. And it's tough. It's hard when you don't have that partner. And now you're all of a sudden a single mom. A lot of these women are single moms now. And, but the program works, if you stick to it. And that's why we've been so successful. But the second part of the program that makes it so successful is the fact that once they've been signed off on health professional, we teach them how to shoot a gun. It's voluntary; they don't have to learn it. We haven't had many of them decline it. Probably out of the 309, we've probably had maybe 40 of the Wade women decline that training, and that's fine. It's a personal choice, and we never give them grief about it at all. But we do encourage those women to get, cameras. Sometimes we'll provide camera systems for their apartments or their homes so that they at least have a situational awareness force multiplier there. And but most of the women go through our gun training program, and then they save up their own money and we don't buy it for them. And it's been a game changer. And I have been told time and time again by mental health professionals, by police, by judges, by politicians, that you can't put guns in the hands of abused women. And as far as I'm concerned, they can fuck right off, because I do it all the time. And I have the data to prove that it works.
No,
Yep.
I'm definitely with you on that one.
I'm 100% behind you on that.
And I think
100%.
that the resources are the issue, and having someone that's going to come and help them move, right? That's going to watch over them and protect them in the getting out, I think, is the hardest part. And then having someone that's going to, that they can be in contact with. I mean, I'm on my phone a lot with these women, and that's the part, is they have to have some kind of community lifeline that isn't going to quit on them. That's going to help make them better. One of my Wade women, she got an affordable housing apartment right next to a retail job that she got, and she, I checked in with her and said, what do you need? Because we had raised money we paid her rent for 2 months, we paid her utilities for 2 months, and we bought her groceries for 2 months. And I said, now when that runs out, it runs out, so you better be saving your money. And then I checked in with her, at day 30, and I was like, what, is there anything else you need? Is there anything that we can help you with? Or, and she goes, I'm not going to be able to afford a car for a while, but she only lives 2 miles from work. So she was like, do you think that maybe I could get a bike? And I said, I think so. And so I went out on the socials and I said, hey, can we get this Wade woman a bike? I had money for it in 24 hours. We bought the bike used from a kid that was selling some things and doing some yard work and stuff to raise money for a mission trip that he was doing overseas to Africa. So that was kind of cool. We got to support 2 missions at once. And she got
That's awesome.
that bike, and she's been riding that bike to work. And I believe that was in April. And now it's June, and she socked away working tons of overtime. Any shift that anybody wanted to give up, she took it. And she saved up a down payment on a car and bought her car and donated that bike back to Wade. So
Wow,
that is awesome.
These are the women that
awesome.
are, that are getting it done. And sometimes they have to hear hard things like, hey, if you get hit once, you're a victim. If you let the same person or any other person, if you get hit twice, you're a willing participant. And that's why, and I tell these women, I was like, that's why it's hard for you to get people to help you, is because you keep going back to this mess. And then all these resources are wasted on you when they could be helping other people. So if you don't stick to it, eventually there's going to be no one that's going to answer your call. And that's just the long and short of it. That's the truth of it, right? You might be able to go find a church that's going to give you some resources time and time again, but they're eventually going to go, hey, what are you doing here? We gotta make sure that you stay out. So any programs be
Yep.
working you toward that. But the difference is that when you empower a woman, when you teach her and when you show her that she is capable of being the best ambassador for her own safety, it's a whole ass game changer.
Yes.
Wow. Yes,
Yep.
it is.
And yeah, I've known a few people in situations like that, and that was the hardest thing, was getting them to not go back. And
Yep.
some of them
Well,
did. Some of them did go back. Some of them have gotten away from the situation, but yeah, it's a difficult thing to do with that, and it's a great thing that you're doing. I mean,
it's incredible.
yeah, you've got the numbers to show that it works.
Yeah, I think the next step for Wade is I think I want to do a back shelter tour. And I want to bring them to them. I just don't know if they're going to let me. So we'll have to see. But I got to take it to where they are and make them
Right.
remember that they don't have to go back. You know, I volunteered at a battered women's shelter in my 20s, and it was wild to me. Like, sometimes those guys would have the balls to show up at the shelter and like come
Yeah.
pick them up, you know, and under the rules of you're volunteering under the rules of the shelter, there was nothing I could do about it. Like,
Right.
I mean, how bad do I just want to go out there and, you know, kick him in the face and tell him to move on? I can't do any of that, right? I have to let her go. And so I
Yeah.
said, you know, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm just going to start my own thing and see how it goes. So,
No,
Yeah.
it's really awesome. And if you're out there listening, if you can, I mean, you've got a GoFundMe, correct?
I do. We raise our money through Crowded. It's a platform called Crowded. And so you can find us on the socials at Wade for WADEFOR Women. On Instagram, if you click the link in our bio, there's a donation link there. And then you can find me on all the socials at Clearing the Chamber. You can find me at clearingthechamber.com, and you can find me on X at CTC Gun Training.
And we'll make sure to have all that in the description. And we should find some room on the screen here to throw that up for everybody, so you've got all that
Yeah.
information.
Definitely.
Well, guys, it's been a blast. It really has, and I look forward to doing this again. I think that we should, you know, make this a regular thing when we have cases like this to cover. I think it's important to see what the instructor thinks, what the teacher thinks. You know, we're the ones that are teaching this to people. How they use
Right.
it is important, and it's incumbent, you know, upon us to make sure that we're getting that message out there as often as possible.
Yeah.
No, we
I'm down.
definitely appreciate you joining us. I knew it was going to be a very good one. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I mean, you had some really great insight, and that was the whole reason we wanted to go ahead and get this done, with everything that's going on with it, because like you said, we just want to give everybody a better understanding, try to make sure they've got the resources and everything they have ways to find that and get that, so they can understand it a lot better too.
Yep.
Absolutely. And you know what? The last thing I'll say is, you know, if you hear a part of the self-defense law that we've talked about tonight that you don't like and you live in the state of Texas, these things are always subject to change. The legislature meets every 2 years to go over a lot of different aspects of Texas law, including but not limited to weapons law and self-defense law. So if you don't like a certain law and you want to advocate to change it, you can help write bills. You can get with your local House representative and you can those changes. And I think I welcome that part of our constitutional republic.
Yep.
Yes, and we have definitely talked about that numerous times before, on how yes, you need to get involved locally. These are the ones that are making the impact. So yet another person that has said this. We've said it numerous times. Locally is where you have the biggest effect.
Listen,
And
everything
if you're
starts
lucky, you get
local,
blocked.
ends local. It really does. It starts local and ends local. And If you're mad about it, or you're feeling some kind of way about something that's going on in your state or city, and you aren't attending your city council meetings and your school board meetings, if you aren't going to your House legislature when it's in session, then you can't bitch. I'm sorry. It's just the truth, because you're not being a catalyst for change. You're not giving your opinion. They're not hearing you. They are representing their constituency, and government belongs to the people that show up.
Exactly.
Yep. Couldn't
All
have
right,
said better
guys.
myself.
Well, I'm going to hop off. Thank you so much. I can't wait.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much. We
Appreciate
hope
your time,
everybody
Jerah, as
enjoyed
always.
the episode. Have a good night.